everybody. My name is Mars. You can call me MG if you would like. First of all, I apologize if you can hear my fan going in the background. It is so hot. Too hot to turn it off even to film this quick intro clip. But I wanted to start this vlog. This is the vlog for the Honeybee Society book club pick for May and June. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Honeybee Society is my book club where we read one dark academia book every 2 months. And for May and June, we are reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and I am starting it today, so I'm starting this vlog today. We are cutting it close. It is currently June 22nd, so we've got about a week to get this done, and I am almost positive I can get this done before the end of the month. Getting this video up before the end of the month, that's another story. But I'm very excited to read this. She is a bit thick. Let's actually see how many pages. 400 something. That's 490. So just under 500 pages. But I do have the audiobook checked out on Libby, so I'm going to listen as I read along, and I feel like that's going to be a good time. I haven't heard anything one way or the other about the audiobook, but I've been loving listening to audiobooks on their own lately, and also listening along with reading physically as an immersion read. So, very much looking forward to that. There are, I think, 4 parts to this book, so I think I'm going to come back and update you guys after I read each part, and this will be a spoilery vlog, so if you have not yet read Legendborn, and you do want to at some point, read it first and then come back and watch this vlog. But I'm going to get started reading, and I will give you an update when I get to the end of part 1, I guess. Hello friends, it is 9:47 p.m. on Tuesday, and I have my first official update on Legendborn. I realized I never read the blurb to you, so I'm going to do that right now so you have an idea of what this book is if you haven't read the blurb for it before. But it says, after her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape, until Bree witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus. Flying demon feeding on human energies, a secret society of so-called Legendborn students who hunt the creatures down, and a mysterious teenage mage who calls himself a Merlin who attempts and fails to wipe Bree's memory of everything she saw. The mage's failure reveals Bree's own unique magic and a buried memory with a hidden connection. The night her mother died, another Merlin was at the hospital. Now that Bree knows there's more to her mother's death than what's on the police report, she'll do whatever it takes to find out the truth, even if that means infiltrating the Legendborn as one of their initiates. She recruits Nick, a self-exiled Legendborn with his own grudge against the group, and their reluctant partnership pulls them deeper into the society's secrets and closer to each other. But when the Legendborn reveal themselves as the descendants of King Arthur's knights and explain that a magical war is coming, Bree has to decide how far she'll go for the truth and whether she should use her magic to take the society down or join the fight. Almost made it through that without an error. It's fine. Yeah, that's essentially it. So we have the prologue where Bree is learning about her mother's death. Basically, she and her best friend have applied to this early college program at UNC Chapel Hill, and her mother reacts badly to it. She kind of freaks out. They have this huge fight, and then the next day they are not talking because they've had this fight, and then the mother dies. So obviously Bree has some regrets there. Then we get into part 1, which is called Order, and it shows Bree arriving several months later at UNC Chapel Hill for this early college program with her friend. They immediately have a wedge driven between them because Bree drags her friend along to this excursion the night before a class that they shouldn't be on because the early college students are not allowed off campus after dark. This whole thing happens. They both get in trouble. So now her and her best friend are not on speaking terms. We only cover like 3 days in part 1, but as the blurb said, she witnesses magic happening. This guy, Selwyn, who goes by Sel, tries to wipe her memory twice, and it does not stick either time, and in those memories coming back, it also unlocks this memory from learning about the night her mother died, that someone else had used magic on her. So when she got in trouble with Dean, he assigned this like mentor to her, and that is Nick. And then it only just so happens that he is part of this group, this Legendborn order, but he kind of wants nothing to do with it. And he's like kind of a big shot in it. His ancestors started the whole order, but several years prior, he made a very public denouncement of his title. But Bree is like, listen, you have to help me get into this group because I need to figure out what happened to my mom. And Nick is like, okay, I don't want to do it, but I will, because he's very much a golden retriever type character. And then on the other hand, we have Sel, who we haven't seen a lot of, but he's giving very much the opposite. He's the broody, almost cruel, morally gray type character. So we've got some cliches, some archetypes going on here already. Bree, I don't love her. She's very angry, and I just have not been vibing with angry characters very much, especially lately. And obviously, I know I've only read the first, 85 pages of the first book in a series. The characters are going to grow, our main character is going to have a character arc, but so far what we've seen from her, I'm just really not vibing with her. Also, the audiobook, I have very mixed feelings about it. I like the fact that I'm listening to an audiobook, but the audiobook itself is not my favorite thing. I feel like the narrator, whenever she does her like just narrating the basic sentences and stuff, it's fine, and Bree's dialogue is fine, it just sounds like a normal voice. But whenever she does someone else's voice, if it's a female character, she pitches her voice super high, and when she reads a dialogue from a male character, she pitches her voice super low, and it's just very disorienting. Also, I am aware that this takes place in North Carolina. People in North Carolina have a different accent than I do, but this narrator has a very deep southern accent for several characters, and like a slightly lesser southern accent for others, and for her regular narration, and it's just throwing me off. I don't know what it is about that. Normally accents in audiobooks help me feel more immersed. Like I listened to an audiobook, I don't remember what it was for, but one of the characters was Scottish, and he had a Scottish accent, and that was very good. When I read Howl's Moving Castle a couple months ago, Howl had a Welsh accent because he's Welsh. That was a good experience for me. So I don't know what it is about the accents in this audiobook that are messing with me, but I'm not a big fan. Also, some of the words aren't the same between the physical book and the audiobook. It's not every chapter, and it's not super often, but it's often enough that I'm noticing it, where just like the phrasing of a sentence will be slightly off, or like one word will be different. I had an example. I don't remember what it was, and I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. But, yeah, I don't even know why I'm searching. I'm not going to find it, but it was like a slightly different sounding word. It started with a P, and it was an adverb, so it ended in ly, and the two words, the one that was typed up and the one that was said in the audiobook, were the same amount of syllables, and they like sounded similar, but they were like vastly different meanings. They both made sense in the context of the sentence, but they gave the sentence different meanings. So yeah, I've noticed that a few times, and I don't know what's up with that, so that's really weird. So yeah, I am still intrigued. I feel like this isn't the strongest start for the book for me because I'm not vibing with the main character. The audiobook is kind of weird, but I'm still like gonna listen to it because overall I think I like that I'm listening to it while reading physically. It's helping me feel more like centered on the story. I feel like I'm not having my mind wander as much as I would if I was just reading it physically. Also, it's quite info dumpy. Like, Bree, when she first gets together with Nick and they have this encounter with this creature, she manages to trick him into telling her about the Order and all of this Legendborn stuff, and he basically just info dumps a whole introductory lesson to her. And I'm like, you really could have introduced that to the reader in a much smoother way. So yeah, it's fine, but not loving it yet. So I will be reading part 2. Let's see if I can figure out how long part 2 is. This takes me more than a minute to try and find the end of part 2, then I'm gonna give up, but might as well try. I will be going to bed immediately after ending this clip, by the way. I'm very tired, and I have to be up for work at 6:30 in the morning because I have an early shift. But yeah, 223 is the end of part 2. So 150 pages-ish, give or take. But yeah, I will see you at some point in the future when I get to that point. Hello friends, it is just about 2 p.m. on Thursday and I have finished part 2 of Legendborn. I think that sounds like someone on a scooter going by, like one of those electric scooters. It's very funny. Anyway, there's a lot going on right now, so I'm sorry if I get distracted, but I wanted to give you my update. And part 2 is called, I think, Discord? Is that what it was called? Yes. And essentially, this is Bree, our main character, getting more into this Order of the Round Table, and she gets thrown into these games. So the makeup of this institution, essentially, is that there are families that are descended from the Knights of the Round Table, and I did find a handy little chart in the back that tells you the list of the knights in order, from 1 being King Arthur all the way down to 13, who we don't know that name, but like all the ones whose names we do learn, and then if we have learned what their sigil looks like, their specific color, the things that they inherit, which I'll explain that in a minute, and their like standard weapons. So basically these families are this legacy of the Round Table, and I think it's the oldest member of the youngest generation of this family is what's known as the Scion, and they're like the heir to this legacy, and they can be awakened with a capital A to actually inherit this power. That's like what the list is for inheritance. So like one might be wisdom, one might be strength, one might be healing powers, all these different things. And these are happening in like ascending order, so the very bottom rank knight is the first one to be awakened, and then the one after that, like, you can't awaken out of order. And for 250 years, no one above the rank of 6 has been awakened, and so it really feels like these lower ranks are the ones fighting the war, essentially, is what they're saying. The war against these monsters and demons and stuff that try to eat humanity, basically. But we witness for the first time the scion of the 4th rank be awakened, and so everyone's like, we didn't even know the 5th rank was awakened because that scion was somewhere else. There's like different chapters of this society, and this is the Chapel Hill chapter. And so things are getting bad. People are pretty sure what is essentially Armageddon is on the way. We also learn that Nick, who is Bree's mentor and the person she kind of like tricked into helping her get into the society so she can learn about her mom. He is the scion of King Arthur himself. So that's kind of the legacy he was running away from and has now stepped into in order to help Bree out. But he also has an ulterior motive that we learn about, in that he wants to learn how to break these spells that the Merlins, the wizards of the world, put on people, because his mom was essentially ensorcelled into forgetting about him completely, and he wants to break that. And so that's his ulterior motive, because Bree has broken herself out of these enchantments several times now, and so they're kind of working together that way. There's also some romance going on, which is fine, but they've literally only known each other for 4 days, and they're there's this connection between us, and I'm like, okay, sure. It just feels a little bit sudden for me. But Bree becomes a page, which are people who, the Legendborns, which are the people descended from whatever, the whole family are known as Legendborns. They can sponsor pages to partake in these trials, and the pages who successfully complete these trials become eligible for squirehood, and each of the scions pick squires, and they are someone who can share in this magic bond, this magical inheritance. The thing is that there's also abatement, I think is what it's called, which essentially means that an awakened scion and their squire, once they are magically bonded or oathed together, they use the word oath with a capital O a lot, it is extremely rare for one of them to live beyond the age of 35 for various reasons. So there's a lot of power, but also a detriment to it. So there's reasons why people would want to do this. And so Bree is currently in this tournament to make it to the next stage. She's just competed in the first level of the tournament, and her partner that she was matched up with have passed, and that makes it go down to, there was 12 of them and 4 of them failed, so there's 8 of them now vying for the 3 open squire spots, one of which being Nyx, and then there's 2 other scions who are looking for squires. There's also this other bit of magic that we are getting into in the third part, I assume, where Bree ends up starting therapy on her dad's orders, otherwise he's going to make her come home, in which she is 16, she still has to listen to him. And her therapist is this woman, Patricia, who very, very briefly knew Bree's mother during their time at UNC Chapel Hill, and through this woman, Bree learns about root, which is what these people, it's essentially black people magic. That's what the vibe is right now. But the Legendborn call it ether. There's a bunch of different words for the magic, but Patricia doesn't know the extent of Bree's happenings with the Legendborn, but she knows that Bree knows of ether, and she's only our oppressors call it that, we call it root. And so Patricia's going to teach Bree how to do this magic that her mother never told her about, and I'm assuming that's the focus of part 3, because part 3 is called Roots. So we're getting into some really interesting stuff. I'm still not loving this book, but I am intrigued. It's a very solid, good book, even if I'm not loving it right now. We have gotten to see more sides of Bree. Like I said, there's this budding romance happening. She's also made up with her best friend, so we get to see more positive sides of her. We've also gotten to see her scared out of her mind, which is always a fun thing to see from characters. There's a sentence, a phrase that I've heard a long time ago. I don't know where it came from, but it's one that's stuck with me, where this person said, characters are like geodes. In order to see what they're really made of, you have to break them. So I feel that's what's happening here. I can't help but feel this thing with Nick is not gonna go great, but we'll just have to wait and see. Personally, I'm not saying, okay, I'm not saying that I would rather this book that follows a black woman pivot and instead follow two white men and their romance, but I love the dynamic between Nick and Sel, and I would root for a romance between the two of them. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I would love to see that sort of dynamic in any kind of story. Because essentially, the strongest Merlin of each generation is bonded to the scion of King Arthur of that generation. So there's like this bond between Nick and Sel, and like I want to know more about that. There's so much like anger and resentment there because of this magical bonding on both sides, but then also Nick left and like kind of abandoned Sel, and now he shows up out of nowhere with this random girl that Sel is convinced is like up to no good and has these ulterior motives. So, yeah, very delicious dynamic happening. One thing I'm very confused about is the cover of book 2. I don't remember what book 2 is called. Blood something? But the cover of book 2 has Bree and a black boy on it. But literally everyone we've been introduced to so far is white, except for her best friend who is Asian, and there's one girl who is Venezuelan but white passing. And like it's very important to the story that this institution that we're in is very like white centered, very male centered. So I don't know who is on the cover of book 2, but I'm very intrigued to meet this guy. Yeah, I've got about an hour. Wow, I've been babbling for 10 minutes. I've got slightly less than an hour now until I have to get ready for work. So I'm going to continue reading for the next hour, and then I will see you when I finish part 3 of Legendborn. Coming back really quick to say I have just taken a second look at the cover of book 2 in the series, which is called Bloodmarked, and maybe it's not a black boy on the cover. Maybe it's just like the dramatic lighting and shadows that makes him look like he has darker skin. It's very ambiguous, but I guess I'll have to finish book 1 to find out what's going on. Hello friends, it is Saturday, it is currently 12:33 p.m. and I finished part 3 of Legendborn, so you can see I've only got a little bit left, and I am loving it. This third part is really where it has been at for me. I know we had a bit of a rough start getting into things, I wasn't fully invested, but now I am. Now that we're really in the meat of the story here, I am eating up every second of it. A lot has happened in this third part, and I read it over the course of a few days with like sleeping and work shifts breaking up the chunks, so I am probably gonna miss things when recounting it for you, but there's just so much to talk about, and like I need to talk about it because I'm like, holy cow, all this going on. The character work is phenomenal, specifically the character dynamics and like their relationships. They're so well crafted, and I'm obsessed. But Bree is exploring both stuff with the Order and also Rootcraft in this. With the Rootcraft, she's working with her therapist, this woman who very briefly knew her mom, and she doesn't have access to her own family's line of Rootcraft, so Patricia's like, this isn't typically done, but like, I can bring you along with mine just to show you all this stuff, and they walk in Patricia's ancestors' memories, only things go a little bit weird, and she's like pulled through several memories by like a chain of these ancestors, and she learns stuff. She learns about these beings that are part human, part demon. She learns about this gate that had been opened 25 years prior to the start of the story, so 1995, because this takes place in 2020. I wonder if the pandemic has any effect on this. It can't. This has to be like an alternate universe where the pandemic never happened, because this takes place in fall 2020. Crazy. I mean, like, it was written prior to 2020 and just published in 2020, so that's when it's set. But, like, it explicitly says 2020. That's something I hadn't considered until this moment. That's really weird. Anyway, completely has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But she, like, learns all of these things through these memories, and, like, this is all, like, interspersed between other moments, but I'm just gonna tell you all the root stuff first, and then, um, she meets this other woman who does rootcraft, who is specifically a medium, and tries to connect Bree to her own ancestors, but there's this huge disconnect there because Bree didn't really know her ancestors. Like, she obviously knew her mom, but didn't know rootcraft through her mom. Her mom never told her about it, and Bree never met her maternal grandmother because she had died before Bree was born, and the same thing previously. Bree's mother, Faye, had never known her own maternal grandmother because she had passed away before she was born, and like several generations of this, so there's this huge disconnect. There's no lineage here that they can like pull together, and that's like a very, I think a bug just went by on my floor. That scared me a little bit. It's fine. Anyway, that's like a very big theme in this book is lineage, because in the order we have these ancestors of these Knights of the Round Table, and even on the back there's this like blurb, and the last line of it is "the line is law," and that's a sentence they say many times in this book, and the line meaning like the line of descendants from these knights, and like blood is so important. And so to have this disconnect that like makes it so she can't get in contact with her ancestors is this huge thing. Um, so there's all that, and then her therapist Patricia ends up being like, I think this was a mistake for me to try and teach you this thing that your mother never taught you because it is such a family lineage thing. What you need right now is like genuine medical help from a therapist, and like she's a therapist, and that's originally what she was signing on to do, and then when she learned about like the whole rootcraft thing, that's what kind of took over the therapy sessions. But she's like, I'm going to recommend you to like someone who specializes in a form of PTSD that centers on grief related issues. And so Bree is like, what? And so that's the last we heard from that storyline. But then with the oath, uh, order, that's the word I'm looking for. With the order, there's these trials going on still, and we get the next two trials because it's a three-stage thing, and we saw the first one in part two, and then part three we saw the other two, and the second one is essentially a scavenger hunt where they have to find these ether infused items, and they are like supposed to collect the most and find them off of these riddles, but then the more they collect, the more these hellhounds will be attracted to them because they're carrying all this ether, but they're not like evil hellhounds, they're just like pretend hellhounds that Cell has created. And they're supposed to be like each page is partnered up with either a scion or a squire who is not related to them in any way, like not their sponsor or anything, and they're just there to like keep tabs on them during the task. And also this task is happening at like the middle of the night. I think it's like from midnight to 3 a.m. So it's like real spooky. And Cell decides that he's going to be Bree's like chaperone for this event, and they end up at the cemetery to get an item, and this is when Cell's like big plan happens, and he ambushes Bree basically with uh this idea that she's Shadowborn. Like he's been convinced of this the whole time, and she's like getting close to Nick to break into the order and all this stuff. And eventually he figures out during the course of this that he's wrong, and they end up getting attacked by these other creatures, and it's kind of like a bonding moment for them. They both learn a lot about each other in this moment, but because of this, like Cell's suspicions and everything come to light to the rest of the people, and Nick is obviously furious, and he punches Cell in the face and like breaks his nose or something like that. And Cell is like, "Oh, you know it's not fair that you're hitting me when you know I can't hit you back." And Nick is basically like, "I know, that's why I did it." And we love in fiction I will preface this with fiction, with the words, in fiction, we love abuse of power. It's so fun. But essentially, the oath that Cell took as a child to bind him to Nick is that he cannot cause any physical harm to Nick, and if he does, the oath will essentially kill him. And so Nick and Cell are on the outs. Bree is like learning all this stuff. Then we have the third trial, and it is physical combat between the different pages, and they have to do combat with a quarterstaff, a longsword, and dual daggers, because those are the weapons of choice of the three. My cat is crying at the door, I'm sorry, and I'm babbling, but like I just really need to talk about this because it's so good. But the three squires who are in need of, no, three scions who are in need of squires, those are their weapons of choice, so that's why these potential squires are training with them. And Cell actually helps Bree out with some pointers, and she's like, weird, but I'll accept it. And she ends up getting injured through this whole thing. And Chloe, okay, let me take care of my cat. I'll be right back. Okay, Chloe just wanted some affection there, so I literally just sat on the floor of my bedroom for like the past 10 minutes and let her run around me and ram her sweet little head into my back a lot. I don't know why she was doing that, but she kept going behind me, and then she would run around and let me like pet her for 3 seconds, and then she'd run back around me. I don't know what she was doing, but she seems to have calmed down now. I love her so much. She's so silly. Anyway, where were we? Legendborn. So the third trial happens. Bree passes, but she's injured during that. And Nick is gone. He has to like pick up his dad from the airport or something like very mundane like that. And so she leaves the infirmary even though she's not supposed to, and she tracks down Cell, who is ether drunk is what it's called, because he has just performed a bonding ceremony between two characters, one who is a recently awakened scion and her chosen squire, and so he's a little bit drunk on the use of the magic. And he's also very, very angry because he's had a falling out with Nick, and he's also kind of just an angry person, which again, I lately have not been vibing with characters who are just angry, but I feel like in the past, however many, 300 something pages, almost 400 pages, we've done a good job at showing that these characters aren't only angry and also showing why they are angry specifically, and I feel like that has done a lot of heavy lifting with me getting to enjoy these characters more. So, yeah, she and Cell have a very weird moment in the woods, and Bree is like attracted to him. So I'm like, do we get a Cell romance with Bree? Is Nick not the main love interest through the series? Especially because I took another look at the cover of the second book, and I'm pretty sure it's Cell because Nick has blonde hair and Cell has dark hair and the guy has dark hair, which is kind of insane because Cell is described as being very, very pale. And considering on first short glance at the second book's cover, I originally thought it was a light-skinned black guy. The fact that it's just Cell in shadow, I don't know, it's weird to me. I feel like it doesn't look exactly like Cell, or at least his descriptions. But I feel like that's who's on the cover of the book, so that's weird that it might be him and not Nick. I wonder what's going on there. Where was I? Oh, yeah, so the two of them end up doing some investigating because Bree remembers something suspicious about this like big mural that had all of the different lineages on there, and specifically something about Nick's father's King's Mage. And we do some snooping in the home that Nick and Cell grew up in. We find out that Cell had a big old crush on Nick at one point before realizing like that would never work, but it's I first of all I saw that coming. Second of all, it's implanting in my head like thruple, maybe, perhaps. I would love that dynamic. Yeah, another bisexual character because we have um been told about Cell's previous relationship with this one girl who is now dating a girl. So, um, that she's bisexual, but Cell is also bisexual. Love to see that rep. I'm just getting so distracted by my own like fan theories. They do investigate this event based on this thing that Bree remembered from the wall, and also the memories that she saw when Patricia's ancestors were dragging her around, and this gate that had been opened 25 years prior. They learn that it was Cell's mother who opened the gate because Merlins, they have this. I don't know if I explained that to you. We find out that Merlins are part demon, which makes it even weirder that Cell was like after Bree, like, I think you're a demon. But it's because that's where they get their magic from, is this like ounce of demon blood in their bloodline. But it also like drives them crazy, sort of. It's kind of hard to explain. But essentially 25 years prior to the story, Cell's mother like kind of went off the deep end. She opened this gate and let a bunch of demons through, and then uh the demons killed a lot of people, and there were a bunch of witnesses to this happening, a bunch of like people who don't belong to the order, just the normal average people, one of them being Bree's mom. And so the order had kept tabs on these witnesses, including Bree's mom, throughout the past 25 years. And in the files, we find out that the order did not have anything to do with her death. It genuinely just was an accident. And that kind of hurts Bree more than anything because she was so sure that the order had something to do with it and that she was going to find out who it was and get her revenge, and now there's not really any revenge to be had. My boyfriend is calling me. All right, I'm back again. My boyfriend just went on a bike ride and it started raining and he wanted me to bring him a towel, so we didn't track that into the house. So, quick, easy fix. I'm back to hopefully finally give you the last little bit of an update on this part 3. So, where did I leave off? Oh yeah, Bree's mother's death truly was just an accident. She's kind of lost her reason for doing things, like her main motivation in all of this. And she obviously doesn't know what to do at this point. And she runs into Nick, and Nick is like, "Why are you two together? I don't like this. Did he hurt you? Is that why you're crying?" And she says, oh my god, this moment was really good. I just have to like read it from the page. Um she doesn't like Nick, and now Cell are the only people who know that she joined the order to try and get info on her mom. And after this bus goes by, um she's like very much hurting right now. She's crying. Nick is very confused about what's happening. He's angry because he sees the two of them together, but she doesn't want other people to be let on to anything that's happening, so she just says it was an accident. And it's obvious that Nick thinks that maybe she hooked up with Cell or something, and that was what she's referring to as an accident. But then she's like, oh my god, I'm like, that was the worst thing I could have said. And then she says, the car, that night, the hospital, no one, just an accident. And that's what gets him to realize. And so now he's like, holy shit, because he didn't expect that kind of thing. He really thought that someone in the order was behind this. And she's like, I just want to go home now. She doesn't even let Nick take her home. Oh my god, I'm losing my words. I've been rambling for too long. I've been trying to do this update for literally half an hour. This vlog's gonna be insanely long just because I keep rambling and getting interrupted and then rambling some more. But she asks one of the other members of the order to drive her home, and she just leaves Nick and Cell behind. And part 4 is called Splinter, which is curious. So, yeah, I guess I'll see how that all plays out. This book is 490 pages we've established, and I'm on page 375. So 90 plus 25, 115 pages. I know Libby says that I have about an hour and 45 minutes left of listening at the speed that I've been listening to. I love that Libby has that feature. It's so good. And it is 1 p.m. on the dot. So I honestly might just read for the next hour and 45 minutes. Actually, I think I'm going to get food first. I should have lunch. And then I might just read and spend the rest of my day reading, because I don't have to get ready for work until 4 because I'm closing again tonight. And I kind of just want to finish this up. So that sounds like a plan. So I might finish this up today. If not, definitely tomorrow morning, and I can come in and update you. So yeah, I am very much enthralled by this story, and I look forward to seeing how book 1 ends. Hello friends, it is 1:27 p.m. on Sunday and I have finished Legendborn. What a book. I know it was a bit of a rocky start, but I'm like genuinely obsessed with this. Of course now there's gonna be cars driving by and being rude while I'm trying to finish out my vlog. Anyway, genuinely obsessed. The second I finish updating this vlog, I will be requesting book 2 from the library because I am invested. This was so good. I don't think it's an S tier because I didn't really get into it right away, but definitely a solid A tier book. So good. What happened in this last section? So, lots of fighting, obviously. We've got to have that last final battle. And there are betrayals, there are reveals, there are deaths. I'm not going to get too into the nitty-gritty because I haven't been, like, giving you every single plot line. If you want that, you should read the book, which you should have read the book anyway before watching this vlog because it is a spoilery vlog, but also some people don't mind spoilers. Anyway, Bree is able to get in touch with more of her ancestors. Specifically, she gets in touch with Vera, who is like the original mother in this line, who is the reason why they have bloodcraft in their line and this like curse on the family. But essentially that plays into the reveal a couple of chapters later in the big climax that honestly I knew this was coming, but I didn't know how it was going to play out, and how it plays out makes a whole lot of sense. So Vera was enslaved on a plantation in the 1800s and was, I don't know how to say things without YouTube getting mad at me, and I don't want YouTube to get mad at me, but ended up having a child with the head of the plantation, this guy, and also in these memories that we are watching, Bree is watching through her ancestors' eyes, we learned that the plantation owner's wife was having an affair with this other guy, and when the plantation owner finds out that Vera is pregnant, she runs because she knows he's going to hurt her more than he already has, and uses bloodcraft to get this like strength and this protection on the line. There's a reason why everyone in their family only has one daughter, and that the mother dies off before her daughter could have a daughter. And like that disconnect in the line is because of this bloodcraft, but that bloodcraft also gave them this protection. That's what this red magic is the bloodcraft, and then this blue magic I think is the like stuff from the order. But the plantation owner was, another loud car, was in fact the scion of Arthur, and so as the firstborn, Vera's daughter became the next scion of Arthur, and Nick, which, okay, let me go back, that plantation owner's last name was Davis, which is Nick's last name because that is the line of Arthur, except the plantation owner's wife was having an affair with this man named Reynolds, which is the line of Lancelot, of course, and so Nick actually ends up becoming the scion of Lancelot and did not know about this, obviously, but I mentioned earlier how the lines have to be called in order, and there was like this whole big thing about like Nick can't even be called because uh who's playing music outside? I'm just gonna keep going. Like Nick couldn't be called because the Scion of Lancelot at this other like northern like chapter of the order hadn't been called yet, but that's because he's a false scion and Nick was the true scion. He gets called. He thinks he's getting called by Arthur. During this big battle, he tries to pull Excalibur out of the sword. He can't do it because he's not the scion of Arthur. Bree is. She's able to pull out Excalibur. There's this whole fight, and Bree is able to hold back Arthur from like truly taking over because Vera is still with her. And I didn't even tell you the whole thing. There's this whole reveal that Nick's dad was opening gates and trying to bring on Camland, which is like the end of the world. I don't know if I've said that word before. But he's the whole thing behind all this because he wanted his son to get called by Arthur to like have this whole big war start because men always profit during war. But yeah, there's a whole thing. Bree is Arthur. There's one line that I wanted to read here where she's fighting this like really big head demon that came through, and she says, I am a medium born from the earth. That is her root craft that she's inherited. And then I am blood crafted, born from resilience. I am Arthur awakened. Banger. What a banger of a line. And then later on, what page was it on? Oh, I should have marked both of them, but I did not. There was another line about her, like, thing. Oh no, that isn't what it was. What the heck? Where did it go? My lineages are bound together in inextricable, horrible truths, and there's no untangling them from my destiny, whether I'm ready to face it or not. That is such a good line. Like, I read that and I was like, damn, I had to pause the audiobook and, like, reread it. But then, the book ends with Nick being kidnapped by, his father, presumably his father and his father's king's mage, this guy Isaac. I don't think I've mentioned him. He's kind of just like a lingering background guy for most of it. But being bonded, being oathed to Nick means that Cell can tell that Nick isn't actually in any danger, so they have like a little bit of leeway with having to find him, but that's still like a priority for the group. They've also got to like figure out what to do now that some scions and some squires have been killed in this big fight. There's fighting within the group because some people aren't happy that Arthur is the king now. They have the regents, which are like kind of like a board of trustees is how I've been thinking of it, where when Arthur is not awakened, they're like in charge of the order. They're gonna come and be like, what's going on? Because things are not how they expected to be. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. And on top of that, there's some tension between Cell and Bree. Yeah, I'm so excited. I think the relationship dynamics in this book are so deliciously crafted, and I need to see how book 2 plays out and all of that. Because I was thinking, while this was happening, of like, you know, the story of Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere. We play into that a little bit with the Vera's memories situation, but also that's kind of what's happening here between Bree and Nick and Cell, but it's not like clear who is which out of the three, because they're all kind of different bits of this dynamic, but I stand my ground and say that I want it to be a throuple because I will always advocate for that kind of thing. Yeah, this was really, really good. Now, we come to the question of, is this dark academia? Because this is for my dark academia book club, and I have to say, I don't think so, which is crazy. It does take place at a college. It has that academic setting. But I don't think the academia of it all plays enough into the story for it to truly be considered dark academia. I think this is just a fantasy story with an academic setting, which is fine. It just technically I would not call it dark academia. And you know what? It's okay because we still read it for the book club because it had the potential to be considered that. Other people might consider it dark academia. I mean, a lot of people do because people talk about it online in like lists of dark academia books. This one is there a lot. And that's totally fine. We're allowed to disagree. Personally, though, I don't think it quite fits the vibe I look for when I reach for a dark academia book. But we just move on. Yeah, what a wild experience. Like I said, I will be requesting book 2 immediately because I really, really, really want to know what happens. And then we can just go from there. I did end up finishing this before the end of the month. It is the 28th, and I will be editing this vlog, I think, today to go up tomorrow. So I'll even get the vlog up before the end of the month. Cutting it down to the wire, but I still got it done, and that's all that matters. Our next pick, I just did the announcement. I believe I put for the July and August book club is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, which is actually on my shelf right behind me, but I didn't grab it. And it's also a reread for me, which is super fun. I haven't had a reread for the book club yet, but I'm very much looking forward to that. And if you are also looking forward to that or any of our other future reads or past reads that you still want to catch up on, you can join the Discord and come chat with us there about the books. As always, I will have a spoilery vlog like this one for each of the book club picks, and people are free to chat either in the comments of this or in the designated Discord channels about the different books. Yeah, that is it for now. I fear this vlog is going to be entirely too long, but would it be a Mars vlog if I didn't ramble? Probably not. If you have enjoyed this video, which I really hope you did, then I think you might like my other vlogs from this book club. There is a playlist of all of my book club videos down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.